What is up, Mets fans? Welcome back to a much more coherent episode of the Mets'd podcast. We had some fun last night. We had to get it out. It was very cathartic to just be able to let some demons out, scream and yell. We got
Celebrate.
Juan Soto. Juan Soto is a New York Met. It's amazing. So today we're going to talk a little bit more about the Juan Soto situation again, coherently. David Stearns is at the winter meetings. He spoke with the media today, gave us a lot of good tidbits. And then we got some rumors going around. Garrett Crochet trade rumors. Optimism with Sean Manaea. There's a lot of things to talk about in the Mets world, not just Juan Soto, but of course, James, we have to start with Juan Soto. And 24 hours later, how are you feeling?
Still feel great. Again, thank you guys for putting up with our nonsense yesterday. We did get some pretty good responses on that video. It was one of our most listened to episodes ever, which is also really fun to see. But it was just fun. Like we freaked out. We made this pact with each other. We were like, if this happens, we're gonna go out and get drunk. My roommate was bartending a few blocks away from me. I was like, let's go have a good time. It's also the call back to Scherzer back in the day. Big reason this podcast ever got off the ground. But it's just it's like today is one of those beautiful days to be on Twitter. It's magical. Yeah. Like you scroll through, you read every single news story, you watch every single television show about the Mets. You tune into as many podcasts you can, YouTube videos, everything. It was so much fun today, like waking up, like and starting to do some stuff in bed and going through every single one of our YouTube comments from last night. Just like, thank you. Yes, like. It's one of those beautiful days to be a sports fan. That's special. You don't really get these days a lot. We were talking about where it ranked in our all-time days as sports fans and our all-time moments. And I think literally for me, it would, and this is sad because of how many losing teams I like, but it's probably the number 3 for anything I've ever felt a sports fan. Number 1 being when Ohio State won the championship 2014. I was on campus. Number 2 being the Lindor home run against the Phillies this year in the NLDS. 3, the Mets signing Juan Soto. And 4, I think would be probably like, I don't know, when Mark Sanchez beat Tom Brady in that divisional round game from 15 years ago now.
I think mine, in no specific order, is going to be like the World Series win 2015, where David Wright hits the home run. That game was just unbelievable. That was one of the top moments. The Lindor home run, South Carolina making the Final Four. Again, I literally have never had a champion in anything that I've ever watched of any team. So this is this is an even more sad list than yours. At least you have a national championship. I'm like, South Carolina basketball made a Cinderella run to the Final Four. That was so sick. Like, what a game. We beat Clemson in the regular season. Well, yesterday was definitely one of the greatest sports moments in my life. And take that for what it is. Take it because there's not a lot of depth there, a lot of good talent to say in that depth chart. But unbelievable stuff. I mean, it's still, like you said, it's crazy to be on Twitter and just kind of nobody can say shit right now. You can't say anything. If you say anything, you're like whiny, you're crying. We got that great little tidbit from John Heyman today about why Soto, another reason why he preferred the Mets over the Yankees. We know that Alex Cohen played a big role in this. The treatment of Soto's family and crew played a big part in this. Didn't love how the Yankees handled things. And then we found out today that Juan Soto was given a suite for his family all year long by Steve Cohen and the New York Mets. Didn't even hesitate. Cohen's like, oh, you want a suite? Yeah, of course. I'm giving you $760 million. What else do you want? How do I get you here? Where the Yankees told Soto, Jeter didn't get a suite when he played here. Aaron Judge doesn't get a suite. He has to pay for it. You do too. We could give it to you at a discount, which that's insane. You're trying to court one of the greatest players in baseball and sign him to a long-term deal, and you cheap out over a suite? Are you kidding me? That's nuts. That's such loser stuff. I love to see it.
Yeah, it's also just the fact that the Yankees still, again, we said last night there's going to be the end of talking about the Yankees, but we're going to have to keep mentioning them because
we got a report today.
Yeah, it was us versus them in this thing. It's just the continued obsession with the past for the Yankees rather than looking towards their future. They're way more concerned of what used to happen rather than what they want to happen. Like, oh, Derek Jeter didn't get a suite, so Juan Soto can't get a suite. What are you talking about? Like, do you guys not lift weights because Babe Ruth didn't lift weights? Like, do your players tear ACLs because Mickey Mantle played half his career with a torn ACL? Like, why are we so obsessed with the way things were 30 years ago that you're going to let it impact the future of your franchise?
I mean,
I'm happy they did.
Yeah,
great. I'm happy they made that misstep, and that's awesome. These bunch of guys living in the past. But other cool thing that came out that Heyman report is that apparently the Blue Jays and the Red Sox had very competitive offers in the $700 million. So this is, again, the masterclass by Scott Boras continues. The fact that he got all of these 4 teams to the table to be like, yes, here's $750 million for this player.
Yeah, word on the street was I think the Blue Jays might have gotten close to the 765 number. They were told that they were going to have to be the highest bidder by quite a large margin. Obviously, they weren't even the highest bidder, it seems like. But it is interesting that all those teams went as high as they did. That's what Juan Soto is. I know there's a lot of conversation about overpay and this contract, what's going to look like moving down the line. Can't worry about that right now. Not our money. Don't care. Talk to me when Juan Soto is 40, and I can tell you how I think about paying him $55 million a year. Couldn't care less right now, today, present day.
Yeah, Bobby Wagner from The Ringer and the Tipping Pitches podcast had a great tweet about this where I'm trying to find it right now. He said, all the tweets from Yankee fans are like, LOL, good luck with the 26-year-old Ted Williams clone, who's a perennial MVP candidate that we also offered over $750 million to. I'm sure that will work out. Yeah, that's exactly how it feels. And then Eno Saris did like a little dollars per win calculation. He found out that the Mets are going to, based on projections for the next 3 years, the Mets are going to be paying Juan Soto less money per win than the Giants are going to be paying Willie Adames.
That's amazing. That's
So
sick.
it's a value contract at the end of the day. Like there's just never, it's not often in baseball that like 6, 7, 8, 9 win players, when I say win players, I'm talking about WAR, become available on the open market. And when one is, you just have to do everything you possibly can to get him. And then we're so happy that Steve Cohen did that for the Mets.
It's just so cool. It's so cool that he did this. And what it seems like now, steps moving forward here, because Soto's not the final piece. He's just
No,
the start here.
the
We know
beginning.
that this Mets team has a lot of holes still that they need to fill, a lot of things that they need to improve. Winter meetings seems like a place that the Mets could be extremely active. We've already seen them, like I said, tied to Garrett Crochet rumors. You heard a little bit about Luis Castillo maybe being on the trade market. And David Stearns talked to the media, and I loved every single thing he had to say. This guy is such a fucking dog. I love him.
Every single time David Stearns opened his mouth, I'm just overcome with confidence and like just joy. Like yeah, we were listening to it, taking notes on it right before we started watching. And I was just watching him talk. And I was like, I fucking love this guy. Like everything I've ever wanted from my head baseball executive. Like I think back to the day he got hired, like a year and a half ago, and we still work for the team. And you were like, I can't get myself that excited about just an executive. I was like, you don't know who this man is. Like you don't really understand the killer, the assassin, like the literal, like he is he's president of baseball operation Jesus. Like this is it. He's perfect.
To save myself here, I wasn't as excited as you. I liked the move. I was like, oh great, David Stearns is awesome. You were like running around the office, like like giddy, like galloping. You're like like giggling.
Yeah, I think it was probably like it was if like let's say what happened yesterday with Soto was 10 out of 10 feeling for an acquisition. I would say I was 9 out of 10 for Lindor. I was also 9 out of 10 way back in the day for Johan Santana. 12-year-old James in the Mets trade for Johan Santana. I sprinted around my house. I was galloping. And then I think for Stearns, I would be like 6. I probably felt the same way for David Stearns as like the Brandon Nimmo extension. Probably a little bit more excited about David Stearns than the Brandon Nimmo extension because like he is that good, and you hear him talk at the winter meetings, and it's just he's such an assassin, he's such a killer, and he drops in all these little nuggets, these little tiny things. He lets you go on a little baseball scavenger hunt to find the really really interesting and meaningful things that he'll put into his media time. It's beautiful.
Yeah, I mean, he talked about how there's still lots of work to do. Of course, he can't mention that they've officially signed Soto yet.
That
Those
was
are all
funny.
the questions, and he's just like, I'm not going to talk about that. Can't do that yet. No pen to paper. Did you see though that Soto already has Topps cards signed as a Met that they're set
No.
that you can go buy? It's crazy. He signed a like 1 out of 5 Topps
What?
now Juan Soto card in a Mets jersey, and it says like first Mets auto. I'm like, how did they get that done already? Like he's been home.
Yeah, they probably had like 3-4 different boxes of cards with him. He was like, "Guys, start signing them, I guess." But did you also see what happened with Mendoza? I don't remember if it was Healy or who was asking him, where it was like, "So, what'd you get up to last night?" Mendoza was like, "Nothing. I was home." They were like, "Yeah, did you do anything? Would you like talk to anyone?" He was like, "I mostly slept." just won't say anything.
Justice for Adrian Mendoza. Get him his TikTok back. Get him his TikTok back. Do you know who I am?
I mean, that kid's a legend. He wound up being right in the end, but we did also get more reports that this really did come together in the last moments. Like Andy Martina was like, the Mets were dead in the afternoon, and then it just happened. So justice for Adrian Mendoza, but also still more credit to Steve, Alex Cohen, David Stearns, everybody. But David Stearns was talking about the fact that he said this winter meeting, it felt like it was more active. He said, based on the conversation that had happened leading up and the conversation that already happened since he's gotten there, he said it felt like it was going to be one of the more active winter meetings he could remember in recent years. And a lot of the questions that reporters were giving him were one about how the Mets are going to fill out the starting rotation, if they're going to go for a frontline starter, and then two, obviously, Pete Alonso. Yes. And Stearns and Mendoza both spoke openly about how much they want Pete Alonso back in the team, which I think was rare. Kind of broke character for both of them, the way they talked about other players, but they were very, very honest about wanting Pete Alonso back.
Yeah, no, I was actually super surprised at how very forward they were about like, yeah, we'd love to have Pete back on the Mets. He was a valuable asset. Mendoza, I think, was even saying like, we know this. These are things that we know. He's a game changer in the lineup with that power. It's just something that you can't really replace that easily. So I love to hear that the Mets want Pete back. The reports from him and all those guys too before were that signing Soto actually makes it more likely for the Mets to bring Pete Alonso back. That would be fantastic. You're thinking of a lineup where you've got Lindor, Soto, Nimmo, Alonso, Vientos, and then you get to have Alvarez, Marte, all those guys behind them in the 6, 7, 8, 9 spots. Like that's a really, really good, well-built lineup that can be sustainable and successful for years and years to come. And especially when you hear David Stearns kind of double down on wanting Pete too, because they're talking about Vientos at one point, and he's like, Mark Vientos is our third baseman. That's where we think of him for the future. We see him at third base. That to me kind of signals that they're looking more at Pete Alonso rather than some of the reports that we saw about Bregman or even Adames earlier in the offseason.
Yeah, or even Gallagher Arnaldo. But I think he did say, though, he was getting very specific with the words. He said, as of now, we see Vientos as our third, we see Mark as our third baseman. And then he said the focus for him this offseason will be third base.
Yeah.
So I'm like, yeah. So he's basically saying we're open to a change, but that's how it's going to be now. And also just to give everyone like a zoom out, think about where we are tax wise, because we're gonna do another episode this week. We're gonna be like, this is how we're gonna do the rest of the Mets offseason. We're gonna like be sharp about it, like how we were a few weeks ago. We did you guys an offseason preview episode, but after and after Holmes and Montas, we're at $237.5 million payroll. So that's only $4 million short of the first tax line. Of course, we're going to blow through that.
Smash through it.
Yes. And it is $64 million short of the last tax line, the one where it's 110% penalty. And then the middle tax line is the one where you start to have the draft pick penalties, 281. So I'm curious where the Mets go in between there, because once you do put Pete Alonso on top, $25 million a year, just keep it a round number. That puts you suddenly at $260 million. That's only $20 million shy of that first line. I really do think the Mets are going to keep blowing through all of these numbers. They haven't shown any indication that they're scared of these tax thresholds at all, that they care about them at all. But I do think year over year, losing that draft pick in the international signing pool money will hurt you over time. I think that's the kind of thing that you can make up for in short periods of time. But I do think, I just don't know if you can do 20 straight years of that, right? Like, it seems crazy.
Yes and no. I don't know. The Dodgers have been doing it for the last few years, and their farm system just continues to be an absolute unit. Like, I think if you believe in what you have in your farm system and the development programs that you have, and I think the Mets, especially on the pitching side, believe that they're just going to be able to pick pitchers out of thin air based on traits that they like. I think your theory and your thought process is correct. Like, at some point that should catch up to you. Like, you don't want to be giving up draft picks because these are free players. And we've even heard Steve Cohen talk about in the past, draft picks and prospects are the most valuable players in the entire organization.
A little too openly.
Yeah, a little too openly. But I don't know. It's also like a weird scenario because we've never, like, we've been a team that spent a lot of money. We know that. But this is a different kind of spend now because we just dedicated $50 million to a player. We have $30 million tied up to our shortstop. And we do need to fill out this roster because it's currently incomplete. This is not a championship contending roster at the time of recording and standing. You still need to go get a pitcher. You still need to fill in another bat into this lineup. There are moves that have to be made. So you kind of can't not go through it.
You can't, but I do think there are probably levels to this. Like, if the Mets spend it like they've spent the last 2 years, that's $100 million more dollars.
Yeah.
That'd be cool. That'd be great.
Yeah, that'd be cool. But that means like they end up doing the draft pick forfeit thing, though, right?
Yes, but the draft pick forfeit thing will happen once you get to about $50 more million. So I think it's good. Okay. They're just good. They're going to wind up being some conversations there. And you are right about this Mets roster being complete. And someone asked David Stearns about that and about pitching specifically. I think a lot of people on Twitter ran with his comment and basically said they didn't like it very much. David Stearns said about, like, do you guys, how do you feel about the rotation right now after Montas and Holmes? Like, what do you think about adding a frontline guy? And he said, we have room to acquire a pitcher, but we don't see it as a necessity at this moment. We're going to keep evaluating the market and look for an opportunity. And I think that says a lot about, again, the confidence, the hubris that's developing, but how the Mets feel about their pitching staff right now. Because he mentioned Jose Budo stretching back out. He mentioned Tyler McGill stretching back out. He mentioned the fact that Paul Blackburn is going to be healthy by spring training. Those are three names that a lot of Mets fans probably don't want to hear as back end of the rotation guys, but those are three guys similar to last year where you're going to have those guys eat innings for you because they're controllable, they're on the team, they're not expensive, and they're objectively fine in any way, shape, or form, however you do it. Like, the big thing to change in this Mets season was that Sunday Night Baseball game with Zach Wheeler versus Tyler McGill. And you went toe-to-toe, and we won that game. We were there. That was one of the most exciting games at Citi Field all season. But it was just sick. Yeah, like, I think a lot of Mets fans want this now to become, like, the ultra-sexy offseason. But that's still just not who David Stearns is. Like, and he was asked specifically about long-term pitching contracts. And he said there's an industry history of those long-term pitching contracts not having a rosy view or something almost like that.
Never work out.
Yeah. And then he brought it back to Tyler McGill, saying he's coming to camp as a starter. And he said Paul Blackburn, he used the word proven starter, which, again, I think a lot of Mets fans are like, please don't say that. But I think that they're going to be open to creative ideas. I still can't see this team going over the top for Frida Burns.
Holiday shopping gets hectic. Why don't you let America's #1 meal kit help you out? HelloFresh has over 50 recipes to choose from each week. They pre-portion the ingredients and then ship them right to your doorstep.
If you're looking to fit a specific lifestyle, HelloFresh features preferences like fit and wholesome, quick and easy, or a vegetarian option for you too.
HelloFresh helps you eat healthier and stress less about how you're getting the ingredients and ideas for that perfect home-cooked meal.
In many parts of the country, it's cold out, so skip the hassle and snuggle up next to your phone or your computer and pick out your favorite recipes. Then let HelloFresh handle the planning, the shopping, and most of the prep. It's easier than ever to get dinner on the table, quick and painless. We've made many of these recipes ourselves, and they are delicious. Trust me.
Get 10 free meals at HelloFresh.com/free FT. Applied across 7 boxes. New subscribers only. Varies by plan. That's 10 free HelloFresh meals just by going to HelloFresh.com/free FT.
Yeah, I was about to say I don't think Burns or Fried are going to be the guys. I think it's going to be maybe a Bueller, maybe Manaea. We've heard that there's some optimism with Manaea maybe wanting to come back. And I was telling you last night at the bar, I'm like, I feel like if there was ever a guy that would take a little pay cut, I think it might be Sean Manaea, just because it's one of those things which is like, I thought I was going to make like $15 million this offseason. I pitched really well. You guys are giving me like 25, 22, 23, 24, 25, whatever it is. Yeah, I'll take that. Like, I'm good. I'm good to stay here. It's an interesting scenario, what the Mets have to do. And I think, truthfully, they're going to be very aggressive on the trade market. We heard the Crochet rumors. Ken Rosenthal put out the article basically saying Mets, Yankees, Phillies right now are kind of leading the way in terms of pursuing Garrett Crochet. The White Sox want young players. They want hitters specifically, but they said if it's the right pitchers, if the right pitchers come along, they will also be down to build around those guys.
Andrew Painter, yeah. I
think that was basically the Andrew Painter thing. He's the best pitching prospect of either of those 3 organizations. But for the Mets, like, we got Drew Gilbert, we got Jet Williams, we've got some guys. Maybe Ryan Clifford could be a guy as well, which, funny enough, I think all 3 of those guys were playing Fortnite on Twitch tonight. And I think Mets fans got in their Twitch chat and were asking them, like, are you guys nervous to get traded? Which is so fucked up to ask these kids. But at the end of the day, they will get creative. David Stearns, I think, has proven to Mets fans already in the 1 year and a half that he's been here that he's capable of finding the best value possible and making sure stuff happens. I mean, listen, I know Steve Cohen gets credit for Juan Soto and all the money. David Stearns is part of it too. I don't know. Like, totally. This could be very different if David Stearns is there. Juan Soto, he convinced Juan Soto that we have a brighter future than the New York Yankees, and that's pretty sick in of itself.
Something that Howie Rose has been saying a lot, and I listened to him on with our favorite radio host Keith McPherson on Tuesday night, where he said that in being, how he said, he was like, I remember the first game the Mets ever played. I've been working for the team in some capacity since the 90s. And he said, since Gil Hodges died in 1972, this is literally what he said. He said, this is the first time he felt this level of synergy among the Mets staff, the organization, between owner, manager, front office. He said from the ownership to the front office to the dugout. He said this is the first time they've ever been this in sync. And David Stearns, of course, is a huge part of that. So is Carlos Mendoza. I think that's really relevant here.
Wait, you're telling me that Buck Showalter and Billy Epler didn't have the same synergy that Carlos Mendoza and David Stearns have?
Yeah, weirdly, the 2 guys that hate each other's guts don't have good synergy. And also, we're both bad at their job independently. Yeah, bizarre. Crazy how that happened. But I think that's key here. I think that's part of it. But I also think that means that there's probably going to be some trade guys that we're not exactly thinking about.
For sure.
Like, like the Rays are always trying to get rid of money. The Twins right now are desperately trying to shed money. We've heard the Jerry DePoto always say the Mariners are open for business. We know Luis Castillo is someone that's available, and I think he'd be a fantastic fit on this team. Culture-wise, talent-wise, everything. He'd be perfect. So I do think that I don't really see the Mets having the dogs to get Crochet compared to other teams.
Other teams will have better. Like, even the Phillies, which is like such a nightmare to think about, but like Justin Crawford, Aiden Miller, like those guys are all probably higher ceiling prospects than the Mets have.
Yes, like the Mets, you have to start with Jet Williams, who's our number 2 prospect. It's probably consensus top 50 prospect in the league. I think some people are torn about what the ceiling could be, but I think a lot of people still really like Jet. I think the White Sox would love his versatility up the middle. But then past him, like Drew Gilbert's lost a lot of shine. Now his defense is taking a hit. Jesus Baez is our big riser. I was first to that. If you guys were here in April, you guys remember that. And then you probably have Acuna, Clifford, Nolan McLean, possibly Carson Benj. The Mets did make a habit a long time ago, always trading their first round pick the second they got in the organization. And Benj is a guy right now that a lot of people in the industry love a lot for plate discipline, for potential power. You probably just have to give up most of your top prospects. And then it becomes a situation of you're giving up most of your top prospects. You have to redevelop these guys. You have a very expensive core. Yeah. When are you going to get the cheap guys to fill in and replace these guys as they get old just to get some athleticism on the Major League roster? Because that's going to be a big part of this conversation too.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people are bringing up like Brett Beatty. We could trade Beatty to the White Sox. Like, that's not going to get Garrett Crochet, guys. Like, that's not how it is. Brett Beatty, even as a prospect, wasn't Miguel Vargas, and Miguel Vargas got Michael Kopech. So Like, this is very different.
Beatty could, though, become a centerpiece of a deal for Castillo.
I think more likely, yes.
Because the Castillo deal will be mostly a salary dump, and then you can give them salary dump plus take one last shot on Brett Beatty. You got 4 years control on this guy, see what you can do. And then you add something else on top of that. Like, you sprinkle a nice little pitching prospect or like a 19-year-old on top of Brett Beatty. That's something I think could be realistic. It would probably seem like a real bullshit trade, but if we're taking $25 million a year off the Mariners payroll and giving them potentially a free hitter that they still think could be an above league average player all around, like that probably does get worth at the end, which is why I hope the Mets go down that path. But these rumors are going to keep coming out. We're going to keep getting you guys episodes of that. It's a lot. It's going to be interesting to see how they go about this stuff.
Yeah. Some other interesting things that Stearns mentioned. Ronnie Mauricio started baseball activities. I think he said this was the most productive week that Ronnie Mauricio has had since the injury, that he did a lot this week and a lot of things moving forward, which is great news.
And we're about exactly a year from the injury right now.
Yes.
Because it was last year in the Winter League. Yeah. He tore his ACL. It's a year injury. We all play fantasy football.
You mentioned all the starting stuff with Budo and McGill and Paul Blackburn. All that stuff is interesting. And just the fact that they are going to add to the bullpen as well over the season. Yeah. Like they did the last year, like they're going to do forever with David Stearns.
And I think the bullpen, again, is not going to be like the sexy Tanner Scott. Like
of course not.
We're going to sign a reliever in 7 weeks. That's going to be worth $1 million. And May, you're going to be like, he's striking out 27% of batters. What?
And you know what's great, too? And I think Mets fans, you can look back on this, too. Like, yeah, we had Diekman. We had all these guys. They stunk. You can just get rid of them when they stink because you're not paying them these major contracts. When you pay a Tanner Scott, when you pay whoever the relievers are going to be on the top of the line, it's a lot harder to cut a guy who's getting paid $9-10 million a year as a reliever than someone who's getting paid $1 to $2 million who may not have the track record. But truthfully, at the end of the day, over 50, 60 innings, there's a world where they can all end up being very similar.
Yes, exactly. I think that David Stearns knows that. And we keep going back to the thing he said last year, his first winter meetings. Your bullpen in April is not the same as your bullpen in June. Your bullpen in June is not the same as your bullpen in August. Your bullpen in August might not be the same ones as your bullpen in October. Like, that's just it. That's how he's going to go. One more thing that Stearns said that I thought was very interesting. When he was talking about the Pete Alonso stuff, he said, we think we have a long way to go in the first base market.
Well, the report, I don't know who put it out, was talking about how the Mets are remaining patient on Pete. They're not going to be super aggressive right now because Pete Alonso's market is just simply not what he thought it was going to be. And this is something that we talked about a lot on the podcast, off the podcast, when Pete was, I don't want to say getting greedy because that makes it seem like he's a bad guy, but when Pete was really looking to get some crazy money, we were like, dude, there's not many teams that really even can pay you like the money that you're wanting. There's not a lot of teams that will. And for a first baseman, the fit's a little bit weird. Like, there's only like 4 teams that can realistically pay Pete that makes sense.
Yeah, and one of those teams is the Astros, who are trying to shed money. One of those teams is the Diamondbacks, who are going to lose Christian Walker. Mike Hazen said openly in the first day of the winter meetings, we're expecting to lose a lot of home runs from our starting lineup.
Yeah.
So it doesn't seem like they're going to pay a guy on the other side. And then the other one's the Yankees, where it just doesn't seem like they're going to be the team that goes after Soto. Like, I think that
Soto?
Pete. Well, they lost Soto. That's what I'm saying. I got Soto on I got Soto on the brain.
That'd be so crazy if we took Soto and they took Pete, and that's like that would be like, that's such an old Mets move. Like, oh, you signed our best player, we signed someone that was on your team.
Yeah, it's something my dad said. I couldn't believe he used his terms. I was talking on the phone about it. He said that would just be ick. Like, that would be like an ick.
Yeah.
If the Yankees,
your dad used the ick. Oh my god.
I think he was talking to my sister too much. But I think that he just doesn't. I don't know. Like, this is kind of stupid, but I just can't see them even doing that. Like, they would hate.
He's too goofy to be a Yankee.
He's too much of a doofus.
He's gonna like what would Pete Alonso ever do if he got booed? What would he ever do? I'd feel so bad for him. He doesn't deserve to be booed.
No, he's a perfect Met. He's ours. I want him back. I really do want him back, and I have some growing confidence in this. Also, just the way the market is, like, it just seems like it's the most likely outcome. It's the best fit. But then we do need to make sure that we build up athleticism elsewhere in this team, which is why I would trade anything for Crochet, of course, but the Mets do have to be mindful of how many slow guys they have on this roster. How many clunky slow dudes they have.
No, that is fair. It's not the most athletic roster. As young and awesome as Soto is, athleticism is also not maybe his strong suit by any means.
No, definitely not. And then I think that's basically it. Then otherwise, again, we had the Andy Martino report. There's optimism with Sean Manaea. There was something that trickled out the last few days that before the A's went for Severino, they offered Manaea basically the same deal that they offered Severino, which was a little more juice on it, but it wasn't a 4th year. He's looking for a 4th year. So we've been kind of steadfast the last few months that we thought Manaea was like a 4 for 100 guy. It seemed like where his market was going to wind up. I still think that's exactly where he's going to wind up. I'll say, like, I don't know if I'm obsessed with bringing him back for that money. I think you might be able to get Nathan Eovaldi definitely for less years, maybe even for less money. I think he's probably still better than Sean Manaea right now. Past that, I do not know. I actually do not know because I think I'd rather have Manaea than Buehler, but I think Buehler will also be significantly cheaper. I'm a little wary. Sean Manaea is gonna be 33 on opening day. He just had a great 3 months. But like I don't know what. I love everything he did for this clubhouse. Love everything he did for this locker room. I think he was a fantastic Met. I would be happy if he's back, but is he a $100 million pitcher? Is he a 4-year pitcher?
I don't think it's going to be $100 million. I think it's going to be like 92,
4 for 88,
88, 92. Like I think that's kind of what it's going to be. It's going to be
4
the
years
20.
though.
Yeah, why? I think that's a complete. It's also a lefty. Lefties pitch until they're 100. 33-year-old lefty doesn't mean anything. 33-year-old righty, power pitcher, different. 33-year-old lefty who did just figure something out.
Yeah.
Like at the end of the day, truthfully, at that price point, we just saw Yusei Kikuchi sign a 3-year deal at that similar-ish price point. Manaea's probably going to get a little bit more. Kikuchi's like a guy who really took a jump this year because his fastball started to have some real life. Like, I don't know if that's a sustainable. And I think for Manaea, who's not going to be signed to be the ace by any means, he's going to be the middle of the rotation guy. As he gets older and older, he just becomes the back end guy. And I think you're completely fine with it because at the end of the day, if he's healthy, he's seemingly going to be a very capable pitcher.
Yeah, definitely. That's why I still keep coming back to this at the end of the day where I'm like, why not just throw the money at Corbin Burnes, right? Like, I know they're not going to, and I know maybe it doesn't make any sense, but if you tell me, like, we're going to give Sean Manaea 4 years anyway, why not just give Corbin Burnes 7? Those contracts will end at the same time. Like, if Corbin Burnes is 30 and Sean Manaea is 33, like that. And for Corbin Burnes, like, I don't know what's going to happen at the end of the deal. And I know I've said a lot of times in this podcast, like, I don't think he's going to be the best pitcher in baseball ever again. But for the next 3 years, you're getting someone who's an unquestioned one, someone you can trust in that role, someone who's a Bulldogs, like someone who has that, someone's got that shit to him. That I think is something this team has now. I would like more of it.
I think, unfortunately, we got in a bidding war over Juan Soto. Unfortunately, we got in a bidding war over him. I don't know if the Mets are going to be interested in bidding wars for players. And Corbin Burnes is going to be, they're going to get into a bidding war with him for sure because a lot of teams want him.
Totally, but again, like we kind of said at the top of this show, the Mets are still $100 million clear of where their payroll was last year.
I understand. I think when you have a 15-year contract and you have Lindor who's here for a while and Brand Nimmo's here for a while and even your reliever is here for a few more years and you might be handing out a long-term contract to Pete Alonso, I think at some point you're like, we might just have to work a little more on the margins on the pitching side and just give out little pieces here. And the guys who stay here longer are what we develop.
Yeah, that's true too. But but this is why I keep coming back to Burnes because we need a bridge.
You think he's just like steady? We can rely on him for, like you said, 5 years of those 8. He's going to be one of the 10 best pitchers in baseball.
15, yeah, but it's more so the fact that he's available right now. We need a top of the line pitcher right now, and we have a few more years until we really think we're going to be able to turn this pitcher development into a real machine.
Yeah, I mean, I'd rather have him than Max Fried. Like I don't even think. Yeah, and I don't think Fried's really connected to the Mets, to be fair.
No, I don't even think Max Fried's a consideration. I was talking to my dad today about like those Cubs teams, like who when they like pushed their chips in, they got that World Series. And I remember Lester being the move. When Lester signed that deal, people already thought he was like halfway over the hill. People knew he was never going to be the best pitcher in baseball again, not going to be an all-star anymore, not going to win a Cy Young. But besides when he played the Mets, John Lester went to those playoff series and was so fucking ready to rip. And like I know Corbin Burnes is that kind of guy. Like I just want this Mets rotation needs a pitcher with some shit to them. They do like this, and I don't know who you get besides Burnes in the next 2 years where that can happen. Castillo could be that guy. So could Crochet.
Yeah, Crochet. I think those are the two names. And I think that's just also the Mets thing is like right now there is pitching available on the trade market. Let's explore those more so than trying to hand out. Because Corbin Burnes probably going to get, saw Blake Snell get $36 million. So Corbin Burnes probably going to get $36, $37, $38 million a year.
Yeah, I'd say 8 for 35 per.
Which that comes out to how much money? I know we don't care about money. We're not poor over here. But like just for the conversation purpose of what this could be. Dude, why did they change the calculator app? What is this? What is going on?
I believe that's 280. 8 for 35.
35 times 8 is 280. Yeah, so I think he's going to get 300 though, personally.
Yeah.
Just to break the 300. 300 divided by 8, that's 37.5 million.
Again,
I know it's not our money. No, yeah. I'd love him.
But I don't think it's stupid either. I think that like if you want to give yourself the best chance to win one of the next 3 World Series, which is how we should be thinking right now.
Sure.
That of all the moves that are available to you, that's the best you could do.
Oh, without a doubt. But I think that's not really that's blatantly obvious, dude. You know what would be the best move for the Mets? Get the best pitcher available on the market.
That's what I'm saying, 100%. But I'm saying even relative to possibly a Crochet trade, I think that Corbin Burnes gets you closer to the next championship than Garrett Crochet does.
I think that's fair. I think that's totally fair. He's also $38 million probably, so that's why.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, with the acquisition cost, with losing prospects, like I don't know. To me it feels more obvious than it should. I don't think it's going to happen. I don't even know if I'm fully vouching for it, but it just feels like the the very logical next step for how this team can become a World Series contender as quickly as possible.
Yeah, no, I mean, yes, that's very correct. We'll see what David Stearns does. He's never really been the guy to give out those long-term contracts like that, especially on the pitching side. We will wait and see. What was your tweet last night that I told you? I was like, David Stearns went from signing Wade Miley and Brian Anderson to Juan Soto.
Yeah, I have it around here. So some Brewers fans got my mentions, got mad about it.
Got mad about what? It's the truth.
He was like, we signed Lorenzo Cain. He gave Christian Yelich his extension. I was like, all right, guys, you're missing the point.
Yeah.
But I was like, David Stearns used to sign Wade Miley and when Brian Anderson after being non-tendered. Now he gave Juan Soto the largest contract in the history of professional sports.
It's pretty sick. What a time.
It's awesome. It's what a time to be alive. Yeah, that's it. Well, we got Juan Soto. This was like, you got Juan Soto. Now it's like, get those teeth out. Start gnawing.
I mean, I think there's a world he goes scorched earth, but we will talk about that more in the next episode of the Best of Podcast. Guys, thank you so much for listening and watching. Hopefully you enjoyed it. Again, we had our fun episode. Now we're back to being coherent. We're back to giving you guys some good takes, not just screaming at you and being belligerent like we were. But I thank you for hanging around. Thank you for watching. We appreciate it. Let's go Mets. Follow us on all our social media at Mets'd on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. Subscribe to the Mets'd Podcast YouTube channel if you have not yet done so. It's a great place to watch some videos. Drop a like on the video if you see it as well. And if you're listening to us, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google, drop us a rating, drop us a review, download, and subscribe. You can follow James on Twitter at
James_Shiano.
I'm Giraffe Nick Mark with a C. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. We will catch you all in the next episode. Peace out.
Peace out and see you guys next time. Let's go Mets.